I'd suggest we get rolling.
Glenn County doesn't have a landfill. That half of Glenn County smells like a landfill. So
Yeah. Will, this may be our funniest focus group ever. You know, with Will here. I can't wait. I need to be kind of woken up today. So I'm excited. Go ahead, Julian.
I was just going to say we should probably get rolling because Dr. Brown is the only person that I was expecting that is not here already. So she's probably not joining us. You'll see on your screen, Haywan, that's a new friend, Haley. She's a young engineer. She's just going to be listening in. She's in the social function and multitasking. So anyway, back to our special guest, Will Moyers. I first met Will over 10 years ago. I was managing a federally funded municipal energy efficiency project. And I hired Vallus predecessor, Home Diagnostic Solutions, which was run by Will's father-in-law, to do energy auditing. And they audited some 80 homes, I believe, about a third of the city that I lived in. But they were much more than just a narrow contractor. They were really part of the project and really contributed to its success. And the former owner has passed the mantle on to Will. And if you'd like to introduce what you do at Vallus and what you're planning for your compound.
Hey, can I say a word about Will before he starts? When I moved into this house here in Houston and became a member of Jackson EMC, they immediately called them and asked for an energy audit, and Will came out and did a very extensive energy audit, which then resulted in me doubling the insulation in this house, getting a great rebate from Jackson EMC, and certainly lowering a bill that I would have paid. I never paid it because we got the insulation in right away. So Will was just fantastic, and I wish more people could have an extensive energy audit and become geeky, kind of like all of us are on energy, because you save energy and you save money when you think about the stuff and do the due diligence. So Will, great to have you with us today.
Thank you. So yeah, as Julian mentioned, one day my father-in-law left and didn't come back. So there was no passing of the mantle. He kind of dropped the keys on his way out the door and I had to pick him up. But that's what happens in small family business. And we are a small family business. We're kind of core centered here in Jackson EMC's territory, like Tim was mentioning, for their energy programs. And we kind of fit an odd spot in the industry. Our focus is not on the higher end on getting super geeky with technology. It's more translating the geeky to the average homeowner. So we kind of fit a middle ground between utilities, contractors, engineers, and homeowners. There are a lot of folks that are well-meaning and have problems dealing with energy usage or comfort in the home. And we've got a lot of industry knowledge all around, but sometimes it's lost in translation. So our main focus, what we do well, is we take the time one-on-one with the homeowner in their house, turn their house into kind of their own HGTV special for energy usage, and walk them through the pieces. Telling them, hey, your house is leaky. Oh yeah, I know that window whistles over there, or I can see the gap around the weather stripping in the door. No, we mean the whole house is leaky. There's air coming in through every outlet and receptacle, and blower door testing and all the rest. And we take them bit by bit, step by step, so that as they go down the path and they're ready to actually spend money for good improvements, that we're targeting them and they have an understanding of it. And a lot of these benefits take time to pay off. And a quick sales pitch from a contractor might do the job, but lasting satisfaction, knowing that you're going to hit your end goal as far as target savings, all of that, that's what we do. That's our bread and butter. That's what we focus on. So from the broader energy marketplace, where our focus is on the actual demand side, working with the end users, helping them understand how they can go forward. We have a program here locally where we look at mostly production style builders. Some of the bigger builders we've dealt with, big nationwide builders coming into the area, and historically not the best built houses and not the most energy focused, but we're able to work through with their trades, with the engineers, with the corporate entities there, and build in enough of a threshold so that we can guarantee customers utility bills and comfort in the house. So we'll do enough diagnostic testing, bring their level of building up enough to where we can guarantee every room will stay within 3 degrees of the thermostat, and that we can put a guarantee on 3 years worth of energy usage for heating and cooling the home. And it takes a big step. It's not the highest tech, it's not the flashy, the most amazing thing. There's not some gadget or gizmo. It's just hardcore fundamentals. What's the building envelope look like? What's the HVAC system operating as far as balance and airflow and those type of things. But if we can get those fundamentals right, we make a huge step in getting our homeowners and our consumers on the path to where they can add technology later, and they can focus in and make bigger, better decisions going forward. So that's our background. That's what we do. For the last 15 years, we've leased space from our utility partner here at Jackson EMC, and we have a great relationship. They've had energy efficiency programs since the 70s. And with no one but their memberships asking for it. So they're focused on the right pieces. They're focused on the right mindset as far as trying to take care of the members that make up the co-op here. So this is a very good match for our mindset and how to work with customers, how to work with contractors, how to work with even production style builders that usually get a pretty bad rap, and sometimes deservedly so, for the way that they build. So we're losing some space. They've had to repurpose some space and for some backup system control, and with the pipeline attack that's been all over the news, we understand how critical energy infrastructure, whether it's on the fossil fuel side or the electrical grid side, is. And so we hold no hard feelings over them having to take up some of the space that we've been occupying. But that's putting us in a cramped position, and it's time for us to kind of spread our wings, build our forever home, our HQ, and kind of incorporate as many design features as we can on what budget we'll be able to cobble together. Obviously, in this day and age, budgets are changing quickly. Just a month apart between getting quotes and bids on different pieces and trying to get my bearings on what a build is going to cost. It's already going up. So my world right now is trying to figure out what are things that I can't afford to miss in the actual construction stage. Integrated components, building systems, those type of things that I need to stop and consider now. And I was talking to Julian. He's mentioned the OmniBlock product, and I'm excited to see that in person and actually use that on our project here and be able to hit that with the infrared camera and put it to the test and all the nerdy things that we do. But now's the time for ideas. And as I was talking through that with Julian, he mentioned this group, that there are some bright minds here that might have some ideas that I haven't heard of. My world is residential, dealing with consumers and coaching there on the basic building fundamentals. While I have some industry exposure and I've seen some cool things and I've got some ideas of what I want to incorporate, now's the time with a blank canvas to kind of draw up and fully picture what we're going to build. So with that said, if there's any suggestions, or if you've seen something cool, a cool piece of technology or a cool building component that would be worthwhile considering, yeah, I'd love to hear about it.
So, Will, would you like to speak to your goals in terms of solar and Sol's involvement?
Yeah, so Sol, aside from Tim, are the only two people that I've met on this call so far. And Sol and I have had a couple conversations now. We're looking at engaging with Sol and McKimming and Creed over a 100 kW small scale solar farm on the property. Right now we're working out of the standard Ford Transit vans. I anticipate as the EV market starts to shift into full speed production on the full gamut of vehicle styles, that we will have some work ready vehicle options in the EV space. So in preparation for that, I had a conversation with Saul about microgrid and just how micro of a microgrid can you get. And Saul was able to chime in and say that the technology there has come quite a far way, long way in just the recent history that we've been talking about microgrids, and planning ahead now. We can go ahead and get that infrastructure run and go ahead and get the small scale solar farm going, so that we're prepped and ready for a shift into EV over the next 3 to 5 years.
You know, on the microgrid front, today, just moments ago, I let Jekyll Island, the Jekyll Island Authority Director, and Ben Carswell, the Conservation Director, as well as the head of the Jekyll Island Authority, former Representative Joe Wilkinson, know that the project that I've been pushing for down at Jekyll Island for storage has made the final cut. It won't be the full microgrid that we had initially talked about, and I think there's still so much to learn about microgrids. But Jekyll has a landfill storage. They have an old landfill that's not being used, but they're not digging it up and taking everything out. So it's just sitting there, kind of roughly graded, and they have solar there that Cherry Street put in. Jekyll's leasing them the land, and they are selling back to Georgia Power. But out there on that site, Georgia Power is going to put 2 megawatts of battery storage, and we're anxious to see how it helps with resiliency on the island. I mean, they have a nice substation there, and they've got some new big lines that have been run out there as well, just in the last year. But Jekyll really wants a full-blown microgrid. They can't pay for it. But so this is a pilot project that we put into the IRP. We did a total of 80 megawatts of battery storage, and it includes 3 different types, a much larger array, and then a kind of not array, but a battery system, which we're not disclosing where that's going quite yet. And then another smaller one, bigger than 2 megawatts. We're not disclosing that, but the Jekyll one is the smallest. We're only doing 1 in the whole state. So we'll see how that works out there at the end of that circuit on that island, with a view towards maybe completing the microgrid in coming years, if we approve it financially through the integrated resource plan. So Jekyll's very excited about this because it could be a game changer in terms of the length of their outages, because they always have to move those turtles. They've got like 29 tanks in the Sea Turtle Center, and they have to, they've got a little diesel generator there, but when that's out, then if they've got an extended outage because of hurricane, then they have to put the turtles in vans and take them, inshore. So, we'll see what the impact of this is. So, Will, you could just wade into it, kind of like we're doing on Jekyll. So instead of building a full-blown microgrid, I mean, certainly a battery is going to be a part of a microgrid. So, you're doing the solar, you could do a little storage. Well, and I think and this is what Georgia Power is doing. They're thinking about the microgrid as they're going to install these 2 megawatts. And so they haven't committed to the microgrid yet, but they want to be able to expand it to that. And so I think, thinking about it on the front end probably is the best time to save money.
So, Commissioner, will they be able to isolate their portion of the grid if the rest of the grid is down?
right now, Cherry Street's under contract, to deliver that energy to Georgia Power. I mean, I would imagine it's not that large an array. I think it's just a megawatt. So, it's being gobbled up down there on the island anyway. Electrons probably never leave. But it's not going to be, the first phase of it is not, they're not going to be able to isolate the way you would with a full-blown microgrid. But I think that is ultimately the goal for them to do that. But that's not happening at the beginning. Jamie, do you know any different? Do you know if I'm on that?
You know way more than I do. They have not shared any of that with me yet.
Yeah. So this is kind of my pet project. So that's why I got to break the news today, because it's something I've been working.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Jekyll Island and have tried to help them, get this and do some other things. So it's
Right.
great to be able to say, hey, you are getting this. So.
So Will, do you happen to have your conceptual site plan
I do.
queued up? You can
I
share
do.
your
This
screen,
is an extremely rough draft. We're just preparing to go through zoning. We small scale solar farm can be considered under the agricultural application for Walton County. So we're very, very early stages. So there are obvious gross errors here. Feel free to point them out, but don't shoot the messenger quite yet. 1 second.
I was gonna say, for waiting for a second, first thing that came to mind for me was just the like lessons learned from the living building at Georgia Tech. If you haven't had a conversation with Sean Aurora, who's the director at the living building, that would probably be a fruitful conversation.
I have not, but yeah. So let me give you a quick note there.
Saul, do you know Sean?
Oh yeah, very
Okay,
well.
That's what I figured you probably did.
Yeah, we go back to when he was at Southbase.
Yeah, okay, that's what I figured.
Yeah, he sometimes ropes me in to give a tour of the electrical and the solar, because I designed that. And so I designed the whole solar for the Candida building and the battery storage. So what's really cool is that the room downstairs is under a glass, and you can actually see all the different features or the parts of the electrical room. Electrical rooms aren't normally that exciting, but I think we did the best we could to make this electrical room as exciting as possible. With maybe we should put some fancy neon lights and a disco ball down there too, and have kind of a dance party. Maybe I think that would be cool.
I like it. Yeah,
we can make electrical engineering exciting and accessible for everybody. So
I don't think you want any drunk people on those composting toilets over there.
Yeah, they really would be party poopers, wouldn't they? In that case, it would not be very popular at all. I guess. Sorry.
Oh man, you're too.
Right. But I wanted to go back about the comment about the microgrid, Commissioner Echols, and you're absolutely right from a utility perspective that it can be somewhat, costly. But the cool thing is for commercial, which is what we're talking about for Will's project, is that you can put in the hooks quite early, and it can cost, well under $10,000 or whatever the cost may be, in order to kind of put the control structure there. And that's the heart of the microgrid, is the controls, the SCADA, all of that stuff, to coordinate like a conductor and orchestra. So that's what Will and I have been talking, is how can we do this cost effectively so that he doesn't have to put energy storage right now, he doesn't have to put a large PV array, and he can also have the hooks to put in EV charging stations down the road. So all of this gets coordinated and orchestrated really cleanly. So there's a lot has changed in the last 1 to 2 years in microgrid, and the cost PV's gone down a lot. Energy storage is eventually getting down there too. But control structures for microgrids, oh man, they've really come down quite a bit in cost. We work with, there are a number of companies. EETAP is one of them, and a few others as well that provide good core control structures for microgrids. So yeah, it's worth having a look now.
For Madeline and Claire on the call, if you look at the tech campus with the Candida building, do you call it the net zero building where Tim and them are? Is that what it's called? Net zero?
Living building, right?
Or Candida building of innovative sustainable design.
No, the other building, building with solar.
CNOS.
What?
You're saying where Tim Lewin is?
Yes.
CNES. I'm not going to remember what the
carbon neutral.
Carbon neutral. Okay, not net zero, but carbon neutral. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the microgrid that we approved for Georgia Power to do with tech. So it'd be interesting for Claire or Madeline to compare those three technologies and determine which of these technologies would be, or if you scaled these technologies and expanded these technologies, what would be the benefits and the downside to each of these three type of technologies? Because each of those projects were built probably, I wasn't there, in the room, but I would imagine built with a different purpose and, with possible outcomes. So, for regulators like me, I like to know that what I'm approving works, that it's cost effective, and that it's accomplishing what it was supposed to accomplish. There's nothing more embarrassing than approving something like the wind demonstration project we did in 2013, only to find out that it was too expensive to do the foundation on the wind turbines, and the wind turbines are still sitting in a warehouse because we didn't approve enough money to do it. And when the analysis was done, that they weren't the right kind of turbines. They weren't going to ever pay for themselves, ever. And so that was a failed pilot. And that's bad. I don't like to go there. Before it even got built, it was a failure. So with Georgia Tech being a laboratory, in the sense that you've got the zero carbon, the living building, and then the microgrid, if we were going to take and spend $100 million on one of those technologies, which would be best to do? You see what I'm saying, Madeline and Claire, that you've got real projects right there that are state of the art, and that many people would love to have, in their city, on their campus. And I don't know that I've ever seen an analysis of all three of them, side by side. So I think it would be an easy project to do because you've got access to the building, the people, and I think it would be also useful.
Thank you so much. Ideas are always welcome. And I love CBA is one of the kind of the analysis tools they push in our program. So I think that would be awesome.
Yes, and I would add that by that logic, you might be able to add in some elements of the Eco Commons as well, and some of those design and construction, some of those upfront costs that went into that. So.
And then what about talking with the building manager and saying that if you were doing this again, what would you change? How would you change this? Like, that that low carbon or zero carbon building, they've got the solar panels directly on the side of the building. They're not tilted at all. And I wonder if they would say, these aren't producing, at their nameplate or, whatever. It would be great to find out how would you do these things different. So you've got Sean over there. He certainly could give feedback. And I'm not sure who designed the low carbon building, but we're still working on, I think I think we're going to do the ribbon cutting on the microgrid fairly soon, I'm hearing. So.
Commissioner, would you like to drop your contact info into the chat so that Claire and Madeline could follow up with you directly?
Now, Commissioner, you're saying the ribbon cutting on which microgrid, Georgia Tech or the one at Jekyll?
Oh yeah, no, Jekyll's not even started yet.
Yeah.
The one at Georgia Tech. I think it's wrapping up. Does anyone know if it's finishing up the final construction?
I should, but I don't.
Same here.
Georgia Power just told me the other day there's going to be a ribbon cutting soon, and they invited me to come over. So
Okay.
the date's not set, but it's going to be soon. Go ahead. Back to you, Will, with your design.
So we're right off of Georgia Highway 81, the Bold Springs area of Walton County. It's the northwestern tip. Walton County, about 5 miles outside of the Jackson EMC territory. So we'll be working with Walton EMC here, and their cap on net metering is set at 100 kW. So and while we're building out and trying to maintain some flexibility, we'll try to stay within those parameters and preserve the ability to sell back excess. As time goes on, as the fleet grows, as we find potential better use for what we're generating, that may not be a concern. We'll be able to expand out in the future. But if we get, as Saul was mentioning, if we get the hooks in early, we get the controls in early, we can expand at our leisure and really factor in and build around the future. So I love this corner of Walton County. We've got a farm, a very scenic farm right across the street, and a tree farm to the right, and then a creek running alongside. So it's one of the last little pieces of just rural in the northwestern tip of Walton County, right before you get to this new Bethlehem area that has just expanded like crazy along 316. So we're looking at building an office here. Final shape and design of the building is probably going to be a lot more boring and rectangular than what our engineer has drawn up. But we're working through final designs and waiting for input, hence conversations like this one. And then we've got some open pasture along the back 14 acres of the property that we're modeling out. And this is where, Saul, as we get further into our discussions, we'll want to confirm our best use case. But there is open pasture here. There's a minor shading concern down from tree line by the creek, but we should be able to get, and it's much fewer than he's got modeled up. That's the first correction, that we're only going to be doing a 100 kW system to start with, and he packed as much into the design as he could stretch across the property. So that's where we're at.
Will, I have a couple of thoughts. It's not every company that gets a chance to build on acreage, for sure. Many are just stuck completely on concrete. So I think it gives you guys some great opportunities. One of my first thoughts, was, just adding back to that ag ecosystem with, a pollinator garden, or even something like they've done in Clarkston. Friends for Refugees took a 2-acre tract, and they had a German guy who knew how to create, I think the word is a bioswell, but they took this land, and underneath it, they dug into it and they created this bioswell with, I'm not sure even the materials that's under there. And then the dirt went back, but it helps in the drainage and some other things. But they then rent out a little, I think, 15 by 15 or 10 by 10. They rent out these little garden squares to, folks in their community on an annual basis. It's like $50 a year. It's not very much money, but they're responsible for gardening that little square, and they can grow their own native peppers. There's a lot of internationals in Clarkston, so they grow their native peppers or whatever the vegetable is, and they get to, it's theirs. They plant it, they weed it, they harvest it, they sell it, they eat it, whatever. But have you thought about doing anything creative, in terms of, agriculturally on the land?
I have, to your point, the consideration for opening things up to be more publicly interactive. We're going to have a steady stream of contractors coming through and kind of showcasing. So my first concern, if we're going to do something, is trying to spark the imagination of contractors who just normally aren't engaged. Community side, we're kind of in an agricultural area, so it may have less impact as maybe something more urban. I don't. You say Clarkston? I'm not quite sure what that looks like, the surrounding area there. But if there's an opportunity and we have a segment of the population that could be reached, I'm absolutely open to it. The initial thought was, especially as we build out and we anticipate having some excess capacity as far as generation, I'd love to put that to use in an agricultural way. And I've been looking pretty heavily into some of the hydroponic indoor style farming. Several companies have come out with shipping container farms where you're able to expand out not just the acreage that you have, but simulate in kind of a controlled environment using the energy that you've harvested naturally and sustainably with controlled water systems, and effectively get higher yields on what land you do have. So that has been my initial response, but I'm absolutely open to doing something with the actual open land aside from preservation. One of the restraints that we'll have with this particular property are state water setbacks with that creek that runs alongside. So we'll have to be cognizant of that setback and what kind of disturbing we might do to create runoff down into to those waters. I believe within 3 or 4 miles, it runs into one of the larger reservoirs in Walton County that's used for the local water department. But yes, I'm absolutely open to that. And another consideration, this is actually compiled 3 parcels, a large 14-acre tract, almost 15-acre tract that runs alongside and back here, a small 1-acre tract here, and a 1.4-acre tract here. This is left open, and this is our highest elevation, pretty wide open already. So it may be more beneficial for us to stack and compact our solar array here, maybe even elevate it and provide shade for parking and those type of things, depending on cost and depending on what's available, and still have access to what square footage we're going to take up from either generation or any type of industrial use. Just get as much use out of it as possible without covering the land in concrete or panels.
Yeah, with you saying that contractors are going to be on the property, I think I want to revise my suggestion. And I mean, how cool would it be if you had just some a pollinator patch, and then you had some beehives on the back, some bee boxes, and that you produced a Vallus honey or whatever you want to call it, and that became kind of one of your leaving pieces, right, for your customers, for your contractors. It's that, and we're seeing this down in Savannah at Reed Delaney with the solar project that he has on their landfill, right, down the river from downtown. He's got those bee boxes back there, and he basically hired an old retired guy who's the beekeeper to maintain it, and they then collect that honey, and so it becomes it can become kind of a part of your brand, and that might be an easier thing to do than inviting people onto the property to garden or something like that, given all that you've said. So another thought.
I like that. Thank you. That's a fantastic suggestion. Yeah, I mean, especially in a commercial, we're going to be using this as our workspace. We're going to be using this as our day-to-day base of operations. So there will be insurance concerns and all with having too much public interaction aside from relegating it to small. So we've got to keep those considerations in mind. But some kind of agricultural purpose that's symbiotic with what we're planning on doing with the property already, that can be smaller scale and controlled, but the results can go to the folks that we're coming in and showing off and training for. That's phenomenal. The other piece to that, especially with the concept that we're going to be dealing with mostly insulators and HVAC contractors in this local area as we certify them to work in Jackson EMC's programs. We want to take into account an opportunity to showcase what can be done with electricity, with a total electric build. So one of the earlier concepts was if there's an emerging technology that that contractors and builders that we have access to and we reach, that typically are not going to be your early adopters, and they're not going to go out of their way to go see some of this technology firsthand. If we can incorporate it and kind of bring them in and show them, a key example is when the induction cooktops started coming out, highly expensive, temperamental, all of these things. They're becoming much more commonplace, and folks are starting to realize just how much control and precision you can have cooking with something that can be completely fed by renewable. But then again, you're dealing with builders and production environment individuals that aren't going to go out of their way to incorporate those type of things or even support it. They're just going to use, the reason Jackson EMC's had a energy program since the 70s, they wanted total electric housing, and builders refused because customers said you can't be comfortable with heat pumps. So they've been pushing and kind of the carrot rather than the stick approach. So I'm looking to continue on that tradition. So if there are other technologies, other things that we can bring in and incorporate and show, hey, look, this is what's coming. This is what the future looks like. And it's not bad to shake loose from just the normal marketing and messaging that these guys use for homeowners on non-renewables.
Maybe our students have a comment, as they kind of look at this and think about this. This focus group has always had as its purpose to hear from students, their ideas, as they kind of evolve in thinking, in their thinking. So Crystal's been with us for a long time. Congratulations on your graduation, Crystal.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
So love to hear from Claire, Madeline, and Crystal today as you kind of look at Will's plans and tell us what you think.
Okay, I have an idea. Well, I'm just curious. Have you heard of earth ships before? The biotecture type earth ships?
Mm-mm.
They're not very aesthetically pleasing. They're kind of real big. They're kind of experimental out west right now.
Okay.
The technical concept design behind them is very interesting. So they really, like in New Mexico, I think is where it got really big at, and they're living like in desert. Sometimes they got like 100-degree temperatures outside, and they design their buildings with a slanted glass foyer. So it's like a greenhouse foyer, and they keep it stocked with plants and whatnot. They reuse like recycled gray water throughout the place to water those plants. They have the system kind of like just integrated into the structure. And then the rooms are all set up behind. So it would be like a long vertical rectangle building with a greenhouse across the entire front. And then an open skylight area in the middle that you can open and shut. And it's got vents down towards the bottom of all rooms that are located behind it. And you can adjust like the air coming through and whatnot. The plants provide transpiration. It helps regulate the temperature throughout the entire building. So they don't ever require heating and air. It takes away that energy cost from them, and they just slap on solar, and they can run the refrigerator and all the basic necessities they need for like simple outlets, you know, mild energy sources, and it all runs off of solar. Like they need no hookup to the grid whatsoever. Out here, there's a lot more moisture, so you have that to consider. You probably still have to have like a HVAC, but something probably like a lot less. That's not going to, you know, you don't need anything as big, but just something to kind of get that moisture out of the air. But it's a different, I mean, you can make it look nicer and more contemporary. Designing it, nothing quite crazy as they do. They like to get really colorful with it, and they'll build it with all kinds of stuff. But using OmniBlock, and it's supposed to be really, really insulated very well, which is like what they do. They usually use like pounded earth and back it up into like the side of like a mountain or something. But as far as like taking down the energy consumption of the building and opening that up to trying to primarily just run it off of like solar, that could be an option. You could just integrate those designs.
That's a great suggestion. I'll check out Earthships, and I see Saul posted the link. Thanks. And yes, and Saul, to your point, I'll be looking at ERV, and not only that, just fresh air ventilation concerns from a workspace health and safety type of mindset. Looking at pre-wiring as many environmental sensors across the building as we can, so that we're able to track everything from particulate to I doubt we're going to have many VOC concerns, since we're controlling the entire build process. But at the same time, there are ready-made sensors for things like this, including CO2 and fresh air and the things that are going to impact just how healthy the space is for somebody to be working in long term. You know, this is a space we're going to be in potentially 7-8 hours in a day minimum. And I want to make sure that the folks that I'm responsible for have the best possible working conditions. So to your point about integrating some vegetation design, that actually has been on the whiteboard list over here to my left. As far as I have yet to see the data on just how much CO2 scrubbing you can get by kind of integrating some type of interior garden. But you're right, in this climate zone, humidity is our major concern. So it's got to be well balanced and done well. So that is a path I'm looking at going down. Same thing on the lighting side. I've been considering whether or not it's going to be, one, cost effective, but two, what kind of balance I can get by bringing in some kind of fiber optic lighting system where we can pipe in not just from solar tubes, but actually take some sunlight, bring it into the building and kind of direct and disperse as we go. So if anybody's had feedback on that type of thing, I'm open to that as well.
Will, this, what Crystal was talking about reminds me, I think it was Alan Shedd, who used to work for Jackson EMC. I don't know, do you know Alan Shedd?
Met him briefly, he wouldn't remember.
Yep. So he runs the EV program for all the EMCs now. But back in the 70s, there were some incentives from the Department of Energy. I was just looking for it on the internet and I'm not seeing it, but Alan was telling me about it because either his dad or he was working on this with kind of passive solar homes like Crystal was talking about, and where they were trying to get people to do this. And I think there were some tax credits or something for building homes like this. And in fact, I think Amicalola EMC actually built their corporate building backed into the hill, like Crystal was talking about, and had plants on the roof and all that. So up in Blairsville, I believe. So I think the EMCs have a little bit of history with that. I think interesting for you to talk to Alan Shedd. The guy is an inventor, and he's built his own car. The guy's a genius. I think it'd be great he geeks out on this stuff. He would love to look at your plans and and talk to you about it because he's got so much institutional knowledge about this stuff. And what to Crystal's point about the humidity and using the plants, that there was a secret sauce in the way to do this, and the plants had something to do with it. But there was a couple of other things in lessons learned that he was telling me about from these passive solar houses. So anyway, it's something that's been around for a while, but maybe they've perfected them in New Mexico, and they've gotten through the humidity issue, and it's more comfortable. How about Madeline or Claire here in our remaining 9 minutes here? Any thoughts from either of you?
I will jump in and say will not likely be helpful. I think I'm still in like the student mindset at the moment, kind of absorbing everything. But aside from the suggestions that were already made, I don't know of any insanely awesome technology that we haven't already mentioned. But I do like the entire plan you have. I think you're incorporating almost every element you possibly could. So if I think of any inspiring ideas, I will be sure to drop them.
Thank you, and never lose the student mindset.
How about you, Claire? Any additional thoughts?
Unfortunately, I have to offer up my apologies as well. I selfishly attended this meeting to learn more about this, following an energy tech class I just took with Dr. Brown. So apologies for that. It has been fascinating, and I've been trying to take as many notes as possible. And like Madeline, if I think of something, I'll try to contribute.
And to
Well,
those
there's
of
a
you who
couple.
are new, I do always record these and post them online. So I'll send that link out later today.
Well, there's a couple of builders. Of course, you're using OmniBlock, but there's a couple of builders that are in Atlanta that really focus on sustainable designs. Not that many of them, surprisingly, but one up in Roswell. She's built, maybe 30 homes in a neighborhood, that's, where she's incorporating a lot of what you're talking about. And then another builder in Decula that I saw a presentation for, and his home is actually in Walton County. And I'll dig for it in my email, but he was building something like you're building. And this was 3 years ago. He's probably finished, but he was incorporating a lot of this. And so he can't be that far from you. I think he was in Monroe. So I'll try to find him. It might be great for you to go see his place and to kind of see what he's incorporated in terms of his, the way he's done his HVAC system.
Sure.
And I was just visiting with a guy on Tybee that has built a 3-story container house on Tybee Island. So he's got it up on blocks. So he's got 2 containers side by side, built a floor in between them, and finished out each container. One has a bathroom, kitchen. His den is the area in the middle. And then up top, he's got yet another container that's his mechanical building. And then on top of that container is a slant roof built for solar. He's run out of money. He can't put any panels on it. And he's got this entertaining deck up there with all these live oak trees kind of growing through it. It's just like the most unique thing I've ever seen. But so he's wrapping up that, but I go by and see that each time to see his progress. So it's a lot of cool things. And the thing about your property, Will, is it really could be a magnet for people to come and see the technology. And then, if you guys, kind of become the regional expert on helping consult people on how to do similar things, it could really expand your business beyond just, what you've typically done. And really, I could see it really, growing your consulting business.
And thank you. And last note, in case anybody sparks from this, if there are design challenges for our area. One thing I'm looking to incorporate here, slab insulation is not something that's popular. We have termite considerations here in the South, but I'm looking at incorporating fully integrated insulation into the slab itself to where we don't have any exposure for termites. So for builders who might tour our facility and say, that's not possible here. Well, no, it is. You just have to plan far enough in advance. So if there are items like that you hear are coming up consistently as build challenges for our region, please pass those along. If there's a chance I can solve one of those, or not solve it for anyone else, but solve it for our project, to Tim's point, being kind of a showcase of what's possible, is very much in the vein of what we do and how we operate.
I would think Walton EMC would have a vested interest in what you're doing. I don't know. Have you met with Ronnie Lee and all those guys?
No, Walton EMC hasn't participated much as far as programs go. Most of our interaction with the EMCs have been in some training type of modes for BPI certification and the like. So I haven't had much interaction with Walton other than on the engineering side and just kind of the cursory getting a sense of where they stand as far as net metering and how we need to make sure we're working and partnering with them effectively on this property. But no, that is a good suggestion. I do need to follow up there and build that relationship out a little bit better.
I think so, because they're going to have the ability to recommend you to other people. And if you let them in now, get their advice, everybody likes to be asked for advice. I think it might go a long way.
Right. Okay. And was there a particular, is there someone you would direct me to offhand that is probably the best resource?
They've got a gas side and electric side over there because they're a gas marketer. Ronnie Lee, probably, R. Lee at waltonemc.com. R. Lee. Ronnie is his name. They do have the gold standard for community solar in Georgia. I'll give them that.
Right.
Better than Georgia Power, because it's true virtual net metering. Georgia Power is not quite true.
Right.
Well, I have to give a quick plug for Crystal because I've mentioned her to you before, but I don't think I've formally introduced you. But she lives just 6 miles from your land. And I heard that she's just graduated and might be available for employment.
Ah.
Yeah. Well, great, Julian. You want to wrap up our call? We'll give everybody back a minute of their hour here.
Yeah, don't really have much to share other than I made a really cool connection on Craigslist yesterday, and I was negotiating on a used Tesla power pack, and a vast amount of assorted equipment added up to about $2,000 in value. And the seller negotiated himself down from $300 to free. So my 12-volt microgrid that I'm sitting in right now will be scaling up pretty soon. Heavy gauge wires, battery management system that lets you integrate lithium ion with existing sealed lead acid batteries, like everything I wanted, except for the solar panels, but solar's going to give me them.
Wow. Now all you got to do is bury that thing under the ground, put some dirt under it, and figure out a breathing apparatus, and we'll and stay over there with you during the apocalypse. Okay. Well,
even though we live on a ridge line,
yeah,
that's pretty difficult.
I hope y'all have a great rest of the day. Thanks for being on the call. Julian, thanks for lining this up. Will, good luck. You got to have me out to your place. I need to come and see it. Thanks to my staff, Jamie and Tim, for being on the call as well. It means a lot. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks,
Have a
everybody.
great weekend.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Here.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.